Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to another conversation series here with Change TN. Again, I am Drew Dison, co-executive director. I'm happy to have you all back. We have two more great candidates joining us tonight. We have Ronnie Glynn, running for state senate, and we have Gabby Salinas running for state house. So I'm going to go ahead and let them both kick it off and talk a little bit about their campaigns, where they're running, and what their platform consists of. So Gabby, I'll go ahead and go with you first.
Sounds good. I'm Gabby Salinas, and I'm running for the State House in District 97, which is in the western part of the state and covers Cordova, Bartlett, and East Memphis. I've grown up in this district since I was a kid. I went to elementary school, high school, and my college is just outside the district. So I've lived here for a long time and have called this community home for many years. And I'm running on a healthcare platform mainly because I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. And, you know, I got interested and involved in politics because really early on, I realized that, you know, our laws aren't written in favor of people. I grew up in a time before the Affordable Care Act passed. As a pediatric, you know, cancer survivor that was faced with a pre-existing condition and having lifetime caps on, so that's how I got started. And then I noticed that I wasn't alone, that there were so many people that were in the same situation as we were, or as I was. And that's what got me interested and involved. Specifically around Medicaid expansion here in Tennessee, I was involved in a lot of the efforts to get Medicaid expansion to pass in the Tennessee legislature. And I would go up to Nashville and see our elected officials vote against the best interest of our district. And that's when I decided that I needed to run. And during all these trips to Nashville is when I learned more about, you know, education policy, what's on the table, why are certain people pushing what certain bills. So I became a big advocate for public education and anti-vouchers. So in my district, we have some of the best performing schools in the state, and people move into our districts for our public schools. And we've had pretty good representation there, but we have people that are trying to run for these positions that are for vouchers, which is not what my community and our district wants. So, we have great teachers that need to be fairly compensated. And, you know, I'm tired of hearing, you know, how are you going to pay for this? We have the money. Medicaid expansion, we've already paying for in the largest part. And, you know, with us having $350 million plus in this past year's budget alone, we could have given our teachers the raises they have earned and helped them navigate coronavirus a lot better. So I'm a working class candidate. I'm very much pro-union, pro-collective bargaining. We need to make sure that we have strong unions. I think you can see the value, where your values lie, measured in the strength of your unions. So I'm very proud to be supported by a lot of working people. And we need more working people in legislative bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. We need a much more diverse group of representatives in Nashville, and we're happy to have you running, Gabby. Ronnie, you want to tell people about where you're running for, what your platform consists of? Yeah, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Oh, you are muted, Ronnie.
There we go.
Perfect.
All right. Hey, I appreciate you having me on, Drew. Yeah, I'm Ronnie Glynn. I'm running out of District 22. District 22, State Senate, District 22, consists of north of Nashville, Montgomery County, Houston County, and Stewart County. I am a product of Tennessee, born and raised actually in West Tennessee, over in Lauderdale County. I joined the military at a very young age. I was 20. I spent the next 23 and a half years serving my country. And then in 2006, my wife and I, we settled here in Clarksville and been here ever since. Retired in 2014. Like I say, after a 23-year career. We have 4 kids, 11 grandkids. So we stay pretty busy with that. Also, small businessman, bachelor's degree. And also a member of the Big Brothers Big Sister Club. So I stay involved in a lot of things. So I kind of got involved with politics. I was actually working on posts for a little while, continuing to serve my fellow servicemen and women. And I was inspecting homes, and one of my old soldiers who I used to supervise reached out to me and was like, "Hey, boss, we need someone with your kind of caliber to run against the candidate who was running pretty much unopposed at the time." And so I thought about it and made the decision that, yeah, we can't just sit back and watch what's going on and not do something about it. So I jumped in the race, and it's been very good. It's been a very, very good race. Obviously, I'm sitting out here in my truck because I'm down at the polls now at early voting. Unfortunately, rain and came in and kind of slowed the momentum down. But like I was telling Drew before we got on, it has been like unbelievable the amount of people who have early voted and just won't change. I mean, when you look at what's going on, they won't change, and they're angry, for lack of a better word, and they're showing that they're showing that anger by showing up at the polls. So you can never be upset with that. I've been here since 5 o'clock this morning. It's the second day in a row at 5 o'clock in the morning just to get in and get set up, and the polls don't open till 8 o'clock. And I will tell you, I get here at 5 and get my tent set up, and at 5:30, the first vote is already here. That's how serious it is. So, again, running, starting to run and just down here at the polls, you see people who won't change. They're looking for Medicaid expansion because they're tired of, over 300,000 Tennesseans without health care. And here we are in a pandemic, and we're still having expanded Medicaid. How is that so? So we have to make that change. Jobs, obviously we are 11 years now at a $7.25 minimum wage, but yet no one seems to care, But we have to make that change. We have to change that outlook and how things are ran. The cost of a gallon of milk is not the same as it was 11 years ago. So how are we still making the same amount of money in a minimum wage world? And then education, we have as Gabby said earlier, education is key. We have a supermajority who voted to take $70 million out of the education fund. And furthermore, decided that voucher programs was a good thing for public education. I never understood how you take public tax dollars and give them to private schools. So we have to change that. We cannot allow that supermajority to continue to run amok over Tennesseans. And then, of course, as a veteran, obviously I am very adamant about veteran issues. Being a veteran, it is very important to me to make sure that transition from service life transition into the private life. So though we have to make sure that we are taking care of our veterans and making sure that process goes as smooth as possible, and that they understand the resources that are available when we get out. Again, as someone who transitioned, I understand the issues that we endure as veterans. So that's pretty much my platform. Obviously, there is a lot more things that we need to change. I am not obviously the protest bill or the First Amendment bill, I want to call it, the attack on our First Amendment right. We have to do something about that, and I am not happy with that at all. So those are just a few of the things that are very important to me, that we have to make sure that we take to Nashville, we make the change, and we fight for the everyday Tennessean to ensure everyone is getting a fair share and that we're taking care of each other. So that's where we want to go with it, Drew. You muted now, Drew.
See, it's been a long week already. Perfect. We are very happy to have you running. I very much love your platform. So I want to get right into a couple questions with you both. So yesterday we saw record turnout for Tennessee. We're still waiting, I believe, on numbers from Shelby County to come out. But over 200,000 Tennesseans cast their ballot. Countless lines, hour waits across early voting locations in Tennessee. I want to get your all's opinion on this. Does this translate to a blue wave in Tennessee? How are you all feeling about this, Ronnie?
I will tell you, Drew, that when you look at the voting here in Tennessee, if you can recall, the last time we had this kind of turnout, we were blue. In 2008, when Obama got elected, this is the kind of turnout that we had, and that was because Tennesseans were tired. They had seen the worst of what happens when you have a president that do not put the people before politics, and so Tennesseans are tired. And so this turnout, yes, it favors us as Democrats. We also had a record number of people who get registered this year. Why? Because people are tired. So yes, I really and truly believe and feel that it is because Democrats have sat on the sideline for the last 12 years, 8 years, and we can no longer sit there. We watch what happens when we don't go vote. And so this year we have decided that, hey, if we really want the change that we're seeking, we have to go out and make our voice be heard. So yes, I feel really good about the turnout, and I believe the turnout is trending our way. And I'll tell you something else that was interesting, Drew. Like I say, I'm sitting out here at early voting, been out here since 5 o'clock this morning. Literally, I just had a conversation with a Trump voter. Now, those are never really good conversations, but this guy was really, really intriguing. Obviously, he deflected and defended everything that was going on. But what he did tell me, which I thought was interesting, was he says, I'm still going to vote for Trump, but I'm going to vote for you, though, because you have made me see how the local side, the state level, really needs to change. So he says, I'm going to vote for you. He said, but I'm not going to, unfortunately, I couldn't convince him to change and vote Democrat. But at least I was able to get him to see, hey, from state down, you can make a difference in your life just like that. So, I have to take it as I get it on that one. I wish I could have changed him over to Biden, but unfortunately he wasn't going to bend on that one, but I'll take that anyway.
Hey, I completely understand that. There are people in my life that I know they can never support a Democratic president, but I have been able to convince them to vote down ballot for Democrats. And so, hey, you take it where you can get it.
Exactly right.
Gabby, so I wanted to ask you, this is your second time now running, and you came so close in 2018 to flipping that seat. How do you see this turnout helping you in your race and the increased voter turnout?
Yeah, so one of the things, it's like Ronnie said, turnout favors Democrats. And unfortunately, Tennessee ranks 49th in voter participation. And we feel it in our bones that the people in our community agree with us, and that they know that we have their best interests at heart. Unfortunately, they're the ones that don't vote, right? So I do think that everything that has been happening and how it has been mishandled has motivated people to have their voice heard and go out and vote for candidates that are for the best interest of their people in their community, right? So in 2018, when I ran, I remember there was this poll that came out during early voting, and it had us like 17 percentage points down. And I was like, that's wrong. And they're like, well, how do you know it's wrong? And I was like, because voter turnout is up. And I just know, I feel it in my heart and on the ground that this is going to be a close election. And we turned out over 35,000 people that had never voted in an off-year election. And we came in within 1.8%. So we were able to do that in 2018. And I know that if when we do put in the work, when we go out and talk to people, unfortunately, there's a lot of politicians out there on both sides of the aisle that their formula is talk to the people that vote, forget everybody else because they're not going to come out and vote anyway. That's not my approach. My approach is we're talking to everybody and we're going to tell them why they need to vote and why we are their candidate. So we have been doing that work of going and engaging with people. My goal for the primary that I had this year wasn't only to win. My goal was to double Democratic participation. Obviously, I set that goal off before COVID hit, but we still did remarkably well. We got halfway there. We increased voter participation by 50%. That is huge. In a primary where there wasn't really much on the ballot, we got people to come out and vote. And that, I think we just need to continue to build up on that. And I know that a lot of the response that we're seeing right now is because we have candidates like Ronnie and Jerry and all of these candidates across the state that are putting in the work, that are meeting people where they're at and saying, hey, I'm on your side and you don't have to do this alone. We're going to do it together. And I need your vote to help me get it done. So I think I'm very excited and energized about this election and getting through early voting and on to election day.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. And I think one of the things that you touched on is, to me, it's not necessarily who's at the top of the ticket that makes a difference. It's your more local candidates, because that is someone that your voters can see and they can talk to and they can connect personally with. And it really makes a difference who's at the bottom of that ticket and your down ballot candidates, because that can be the difference in turnout. So sticking kind of with voter turnout and at least voter issues, we had great voter turnout yesterday. But the Sentencing Project came out with a report that showed that 1 in every 13 voters in Tennessee is ineligible to vote because of a felony. And of course, this affects Latino and Black voters at a much higher rate. I believe the statistic is 1 in 5 Black adults cannot vote because of a felony restriction. What are your all's ideas as to how to make voting easier in the state when we already rank towards the bottom? And how do we help people who have been disenfranchised get their voting rights back? And Gabby, I'll turn this one over to you first.
How much time do we got?
You take all the time you need.
If we're just talking about like just your average voter, even if you don't have any like record or anything, we're doing terrible. We just got online voter registration. I just got it not that long ago. We have this like month-long time that you have to register before. We don't have same-day voter registration. There's so many things that we make it so hard for voters to sign up to vote. And by the time an election, if you have a disengaged voter that you talk to or somehow your message resonates with them and it's past that 1 month mark, they could be as motivated as they want to be, they're not going to get to vote, right? So we need to change those laws. There's no reason. We have the technology to be able to do it. We need to update our systems because it's our democracy, right? This is what our country is built on. And we should put actions behind it that demonstrate the pride that we have, right? We pride ourselves as this great democracy. Well, we're not showing it and our numbers show. So I would start there. And then in terms of expungement, we make it really hard for people to get back to their lives after they have, paid off their debts we need to make sure that those, it got lowered, but to me, I think we need to get rid of the expungement fees, and we just need to make it a lot easier. Voter ID laws, there's so many laws out there that make it harder for people to vote. Here in Shelby County, we had people were going to be able to use their library cards. There was an effort behind putting that because you need to show proof of residency to get your library cards. And now, a lot of these cards pictures on them. It can be your photo ID and it's government issued, but it failed. So there's a lot of creative ways that we need to tackle this, because I think it's embarrassing that we rank so low in the country. And that, I mean, people want to take pride in the fact that now we have online voter registration. I'm like, that's not enough. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah, it's a great step, but there's so much more work to be done. Ronnie, I want to get your opinions on this too. I mean, this is something we've seen Florida, put, and they supported the amendment to allow people to restore their voting rights. But then we've seen active GOP majorities try and strip that back away. So it's enough for us to act on it, but we've seen these voter tactics of, voter disenfranchisement and voter suppression. So how do we combat the GOP majority in this effort?
First of all, we vote them out, Drew. I mean, let's just be for real. Our first order of business is, is to vote them out. Just piggybacking on what Gabby said when you talk about voter ID, a student ID, in order, it's already verified by the Social Security card and the birth certificate, but yet they can't use it to vote. How is that possible when they can't even get a student ID unless they're using their Social Security card and their birth certificate? Just those kind of things like that, what Gabby said, it is just another form of what I like to call backdoor suppression, voter suppression, and just trying to, make it even harder. Every kid is not going to get a driver license. That's just the truth. They're not going to get it. My grandson's 16, and Lord knows I'm not taking him driving because my heart rate won't take it, So, also we have to really address our criminal justice reform. When you look at our criminal justice reform here in the state of Tennessee, so the governor put together this commission that came up with 23 different recommendations, and not a single one was acted upon. Not a single one. What was the purpose of it? Was it just a dog and pony show? Or was he really sincere about addressing our criminal justice problem issues? So when you look at that, right, you vote this supermajority out. Now you can really hold his feet to the fire to make sure that, hey, we are addressing criminal justice reform. But when you look at, like Gabby said, the expungement, okay? So the governor did one thing. He said, okay, we're going to waive the expungement fee, right? But that's not enough, because even when you waive the expungement fee, so you've paid your debt, but you still have this felony charge over your head. So that makes it even difficult to get a job. Okay, you can't get a job because you have this felony over your head. Well, you can't get the felony off because you can't get a job to pay your fees and your fines, because you have to have that paid before you can get your felony dropped. So, I mean, it's just an endless cycle of not being able to actually get out of that system. And so we have to look at that and say, okay, how do we make sure that we're not continuously in this cycle of endless trying to get people out of it, of that system? And then we have to also look at what is really the definition of what are we going to call a felony, right? Is it that small little bag of, unfortunate marijuana that people are getting felonies for? But yet it's okay for them to put a law in place that says, if I peacefully protest, you're going to give me a felony. So we basically just one for one, and we didn't remove anything. It makes absolutely no sense for such a what I would consider peacefully protesting. You now can give me a felony, a 1 year in jail, in prison, and a $5,000 fine. So now you just took my voting rights away, and now I go into this endless cycle of trying to get it lifted so that I can vote. So we're not helping ourselves by coming up with these laws that's going to give people felonies. We also need to look at how we're charging people for such a small, minute thing. If we legalize marijuana, that would do a lot of it. In legalizing marijuana, we're talking, not only are we getting rid of this felony that makes absolutely no sense. But what we're also doing is we're bringing additional revenue into the state. We could use that revenue, especially right now with this pandemic, with the pandemic that we've been dealing with. The fact that you use the lack of revenue for every reason to cut everything except your own pay, that's a problem. That's a problem. So, you know, we there are ways we can do this, but again, until we get that supermajority out of the state Senate and out of the state House, you know, that's our first order of business.
Yep, absolutely. 8 seats. We need 8 seats in the state house. Gabby's going to be one of them.
Exactly.
So I kind of want to switch topics a little bit back to the coronavirus, which obviously has dominated this election cycle. You know, cases are still surging in Tennessee. Governor Lee is now under quarantine after, just a fun fact for everyone watching, days ago, him and a GOP candidate, Becky Dunn-Massey, for state Senate, hosted a barbecue with no masks. So it was for anyone to come up to. So now he's quarantining. But I mean, I want to get your opinion. How has Governor Lee's handling and your opponent's handling of the coronavirus been, in your opinion? And Ronnie, I'll throw this one back to you.
I will tell you, Drew, silence is complicit. It really is. When you do not speak up for wrong, you are just as guilty as the person doing it. I will tell you that I honestly believe that the handling of this pandemic has been just as bad here in the state as it has been at the federal level. I mean, it's awful. The problem is, if you do not handle the pandemic, if you do not get control of the situation, then we will constantly fail. We will continue to play catch up. We should have tackled this in the beginning. We should have made the hard decisions and locked down the state. And hey, I would have accepted that for 2 months than to be now 6 months into it and we're still fooling around with it. I mean, we're still wearing masks, not knowing who does, who doesn't, you know. And here in the district, we are suffering bad. We've lost over 65 Tennesseans here in the district, and that's never acceptable. Any life lost is an unacceptable loss, no matter what we're dealing with. And when you think about a workforce, you know, they like to use this, we have to get the economy back going. We have to get the economy back going. The fact of the matter is, what good is an economy? What good is in a workforce if they're all sick? You cannot have a workforce if everyone is sick. You know, like I told you in the beginning, I'm a retired military. And of course, being deployed, one of the big things that happens in a deployment is if someone if the food service guy or gal or young lady does not wash their hands and they contaminate some food, okay? We go in and we eat this food. Now we have a sick group of soldiers. How can we fight the war if everybody's laid up sick? We lose. We lose when that happens. So this is the same concept to me. If you do not handle the situation up front, if you do not contain this virus up front, we will have a sick workforce. We will never get the economy back to going. We will never be able to bring the jobs back or get people back to working. Everyone will be laid up sick. And then we'll just continue to infect each other more and more and more. So the handling of it has been a disaster because we did not take care of it up front. And until we do that, we're going to continue to play catch up. We're going to continue to quarantine. And unfortunately, we're going back into the fall, into the cold days, where the virus sits even longer now. So again, we have to vote out that GOP majority because being complicit is just as guilty. And that's how my opponent is handled.
Yeah, absolutely. Gabby, I want to get your opinion on this too. Your thoughts on the handling, Governor Lee's handling of the coronavirus pandemic in Tennessee and your opponents.
Yeah, so I have a unique perspective when it comes to this because I come from a scientific background. And not only do I come from a scientific background, but I specialize in pharmaceutical sciences and infectious diseases. So it has been completely mishandled. We have not let the data guide our decision making, and we're seeing the numbers, right? You cannot deny the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Our cases are through the roof. And you know, here in Shelby County, and at the state level, our cases were rising, and then we were like, nope, we're going to open the economy. Nope, we're going to keep going. Phase 1, phase 2. No, we're not going backwards. We're not even hitting stop, right? Not even okay. We need to stay on phase 2 for a little while and see how we can adjust to make things different. No, let's go full steam ahead. Have zero care for people, and for me, you know, it's as a someone that's immunocompromised and that works in healthcare and has seen some, I mean, here in Shelby County, we have St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. It's, I don't understand how you can claim to be pro-life and not care about the life of your constituents, as the governor hasn't. And most recently, I mean, the fact that we don't have a mask mandate, how many months into this are we in? And, you know, we don't have a statewide mask mandate. He couldn't even get the freaking masks that were appropriate for people. Like, that's ridiculous. And then, you know, these past 2 weeks, the speaker came down to Memphis and was saying that we need to get bureaucrats out of the decision making. And he was talking about the head of our Shelby County Health Department. I was like, she has a PhD in nursing and an advanced degree in public health. I trust her way more than I trust you. You're not even from Shelby County.
Yep.
Not a leader. You're
Yep.
not a leader. And you know, those decisions are made, you know, those policies are in place because of how diverse our state is, right? The top 6 more urban areas are autonomous. They don't follow the same protocols and the same procedures as our state health department, right? Because it's so different, and we need to have that. We need to have that flexibility in our state if we're all going to be okay, right? If we're going to make through it. What's going to work in rural Tennessee is not going to work in Memphis, and what's going to work in Memphis, it may not work for rural Tennessee, right? And they refuse to adjust to what is happening around them, and they are selfish and reckless. And they do not deserve to be in positions of leadership. We cannot, right now, people's lives are at risk. I worry about our healthcare workers that have been at like beyond capacity for 6 months straight, and we're not doing anything to help them. I mean, at least at the very minimum, pass a statewide mask mandate at the very least, because the system's going to collapse. What are we going to do when the winter months hit? You know, flu cases are going to go up, and you know, we're heading into flu season, and we're going to have 2 different infectious diseases going at the same time. And you know, there's so much that mitigation strategies that we could have in place that they don't care to listen to. They don't care to have opinions from experts, people that know the science, people that know this data, know how to navigate this. They have zero interest in that, and that's not leadership. And with every election, we have an opportunity to elect people that don't feel that way, that are willing to listen, that are willing to take the steps that we need to get everyone out of this safely. And you know, I'll be the first one to celebrate if we get a vaccine soon, and I'll be in the line to get it. But the reality of this is going to be a lot longer than most people are expecting. And the other thing is, they need to stop lying to the American people and the people of Tennessee. We need to be honest. We need to say, hey, we're in this together. We're going to get through this. And we're going to have to figure out of how we're going to do that for an extended period of time with everyone's safety in mind. You know, my campaign, I haven't, you know, knocked on a single door because I do not want to risk my health, the health of my future constituents, the health of my volunteers. It is not worth it. I am not willing to win at all costs. If someone dies because of what we're doing, that I could not live with myself. Is ways to campaign safely. So we've, you know, made phone calls, sent texts, sent postcards, we found different ways, doing Facebook Lives right now. And that's not the same care that my opponent has taken, right? They're out there canvassing, they have pictures of them in groups without masks. And that's not, you know, how you get there matters. And, you know, we're going to get there by being safe, by keeping everyone healthy, because that's how we're going to lead, right? So how you get there matters. And they're not willing to lead right now. They're willing to put people's at risk just to win.
Yep, absolutely. Gabby, you brought up something very interesting and something that I think is going to be a hot legislative topic in the next session. You talked about local health boards. Here in Knox County, our local health department has become a huge issue. Our county mayor has railed against them for their regulations and decisions on, you know, keeping bars closed or, you know, instituting mask mandates. And now this seems to be a echoing point for a lot of the GOP supermajority across the state. What do you say to this party that favors small government, yes, wants to micromanage every form of government, especially at the state level? And is it wise to practically muzzle health officials who are not elected, who have, you know, the best interest at heart for their constituents? And I'm going to throw this one back to you since you brought it up, Gabby.
Yeah, I think for they pride themselves in loving the Constitution, loving small government, they sure do the opposite, right? Who has sponsored the most constitutional amendments to our legislature, you know, to our ballot? It's been the GOP. Who has passed more bills that are unconstitutional? It has been them. Who has had government overreach when it has come to people's counties that weren't willing to participate in the sanctuary city bills? When it comes to, I mean, when we took down our statues here in Shelby County, they said, well, you're not going to get the $200,000 that you were supposed to get for your bicentennial celebration. We're like, okay, we'll raise it ourselves. But, you know, that was a local issue, right? And we're seeing the same thing with this. When you are doing something that goes against what they believe, which is not based on data, they come after you and they use government to do it, right? And I believe that we should trust the experts because they have studied public health issues and they know how to navigate this stuff, right? This is what they go to school for. This is what they train. And the politicians aren't experts in public health. They aren't experts in infectious diseases. This is why we have, you know, health departments, right? If we weren't going to use them, why would we put so much money and effort into hiring people and having these departments set up? This is their purpose, right? This is what they're there for. And we need to trust our healthcare experts and our scientists over our politicians. I think we're going to see the same thing with school boards. They're going to want to shoot these decisions down to the school board level in terms of deciding when schools are going to go open, if they're going to be virtual or they're going to have like some hybrid model. And, you know, when it comes to teaching kids, I trust teachers, but this is also health, has to do with health, right? So we need to have health experts have a big say in all of this. And I don't know why they think they know they're the authority in all of this, because it's not the case, right? And the numbers show we need to have some flexibility though, because again, different regions of the state, maybe different strategies will work for different regions of the state versus other parts of the state. So we do need to have flexibility, but just to say that, no, we're not, we need to shoot it back down just to, and not listen to our healthcare experts at the local level. I think that's a huge would be a huge mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. Ronnie, I want to get your thoughts on this too. It seems like they're gonna come into this legislative session prepared to attack local health boards for making these decisions. What is your message to that? And would you feel comfortable yourself if these boards were muzzled or became elected positions?
I will tell you, Drew, if all of a sudden now the scientists do not know what they're talking about, then we should cut loose now and take science out of school. I mean, what are we teaching it for? If why is it a mandatory class to have science if all of a sudden now it doesn't matter? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You do not accomplish a problem by questioning the expert. That's like going to do your taxes and then telling your accountant you don't know how to count. Well, what did you, I mean, is that the purpose of the accountant? You may not agree with the accounting, and you can always double check the numbers. You still wouldn't know what they're talking about. But the fact of the matter is, that is the reason why they're considered experts. That's why they are the experts, because they've been studying this all their lives. That's what they've made their life doing, studying, understanding science, understanding infectious diseases. But now all of a sudden, we're questioning everything they say and do. And that's just not how it should happen. That's not what's supposed to happen. When you have that, again, that supermajority, and because they are the supermajority, when they can sit there and say, I don't agree, and then they can pass a law to say, I don't agree, then that's when we lose as Tennesseans. Because again, you do not have to agree with everything that someone says, but you have to listen when they are the experts. So what the health departments are doing now is everything they've ever done, everything that they've said is being questioned and used against them. And it's putting, as Gabby said, it is continually putting people's lives at risk. But yet they say they care. Well, you cannot care. You cannot care for the lives of your Tennessee, of your fellow constituents, when you're constantly questioning the very people whose job is to keep them alive, who's to make sure that we're safe, to make sure that we're doing all the necessary things to ensure our existence in this world. It is unbelievable that we are even having a discussion to address and to talk about questioning experts when that's all they do. So again, we have to vote them out. That is the bottom line. We have to vote them out and put people in place who are actually going to listen, who's actually going to understand and take the advice of the very experts that spent their lives making sure we're safe, we're healthy, and that we are able to exist in this world.
Absolutely. Common theme there. We just got to get rid of them. We got to vote them out.
We got to get rid of them. Yeah, that's
we got to vote them out. So we've talked about a couple heavy topics now. So I kind of want to lighten things up. Here on our conversation series, our favorite part is to have the candidates ask each other a question. So anything that you're interested in knowing. So Ronnie, I'm going to give you the chance to ask Gabby a question.
Let's see. That's a good one there, Gabby. So I know you said that you didn't get out and canvass or anything like that. How do you feel that, your other efforts, and what other innovative way did you use to reach voters? I know you say you didn't canvass, but you did phone bank, you did make calls and mailers. Was there another innovative way that you used also to get out to voters?
No, those were the main ones. And I think part of people being at home and having a lot to deal with, they're more willing to talk, which is very surprising. I think people are like, hey, what's going on? What you got?
Yeah.
Kind of breaks up their day a little bit. And even people that don't agree with us were willing to let us know what they were thinking, what they're going through. And maybe in other cases, it may have not. I mean, I know in other times it hasn't been like that. People were less willing to talk, or they're so like, okay, I don't, no, I'm gonna But now people are more willing to talk and hear us out. And, you know, for me, it's also important to listen. The other thing that we did was we did contactless mask drop-offs. Have a awesome friend that got, she is a costumer and seamstress, and she's a member of the union IATSE, and I've known her for a really long time. She wasn't working because film and television have been really impacted, and they're no longer a lot of there's not a lot of filming going on, right? So she had some time on her hand, and she had a lot of fabric. So she started sewing masks for us, and this was really, really early on, and we've continued doing this throughout the entire cycle. But when people were not having access to masks, we were saying, hey, masks work. We need to get people to wear masks. So we started that initiative, I mean, back in March. And so we've handed out over 1,000 masks now.
Wow.
We would call people and say, hey, how are you doing? Do you or your family members need masks? And if they said yes, we would say, how many do you need? And then we would send out people to leave the masks on their porch with a little bit of literature in there about us. That started a lot of conversations, and it was something that we could do for our community. We're very big believers on, hey, you don't have to be an elected official to, you know, roll up your sleeves and help.
Right.
And that gave us something to do. And our volunteers, you know, I mean, wearing a mask can save lives. So that was kind of a unique way that we kind of saw an opportunity where we could be helpful.
Awesome. Awesome.
Wonderful. Gabby, I'm going to let you ask Ronnie a question.
Are there any skills that you learned, like as a veteran and a military person, that have helped you in the campaign trail?
Great question. Yes. The fact is that you know, after 23 years, you learn compassion. You know, as someone who made it pretty high in the ranks, I made it to Master Sergeant. You know, you have a lot of soldiers who fall under your care and under your supervision. So compassion for others was something that I embellished. I mean, I love the fact that decisions I made affected my soldiers' lives. Like, you know, when they talk about their careers, how do you make sure that their careers are just as prosperous as yours? It's by teaching them how to lead, teaching them how to take care of themselves and advance and go to school and learn what it is they need to learn. Learn your trade and how to get better at it. And every day look for something else that you can improve in your career that's going to help you, because in due time you will be a supervisor and you will lead soldiers. So how do you make sure that you bring them along with you? So the biggest thing that I always treasured as a supervisor was the compassion that I wanted to display, or I wanted to give to my soldiers to help them in their careers, but also to take it home, like to really teach their kids, because they saw me interact with my family and they saw me interact with my kids, and they saw what I brought to them and how I took them with me in my career. And everything that I done in my career was based on making sure that my family benefited from it as well, whether it be financially, whether it be, you know, just in growing in my career. So I always felt like compassion was a very big thing for me, because, you know, you can affect people's lives in a good way, or you can affect them in a bad way. And I just always felt like I wanted to be the one who affected their lives in a good way. And like when I started out this broadcast, and I talked about how one of my old soldiers who I used to supervise called me. This is an old soldier from back in the day who called that I was still in touch with and said, we need someone like you to run for this seat. And it made me feel good, because when you have an old soldier, especially us in the military, we like to say an old soldier of mine, when they still believe in you as a leader, I think it speaks volumes to how you affected their lives and how you changed their lives. And so compassion has just been something that I believe in. I think we all should have it when we talk and we deal with constituents, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference in everything we do. So I think that has been the biggest piece of me.
Perfect. I always love seeing what the candidates are going to ask each other. So we're getting close to the end here. So I want to go ahead and ask you both, what makes you hopeful that we can actually change Tennessee? Gabby, I'm going to throw this one back to you.
The voter turnout that we're seeing. I'm very hopeful that we can change Tennessee. I do think that there's a lot more than that all of us agree on than there are things that we disagree on. So I think seeing so many people at the polls was so exciting, and it was all different types of people too, right? It was young, old, or different ethnicities. I mean, it was awesome to witness, and I had never seen the polls like that, and I've helped in various elections, so it was very exciting and really cool to witness.
Perfect. Yeah, Ronnie, what makes you hopeful that we can change Tennessee?
Just the mere fact that when I would go out and I would talk to people or go to and we were safe, Gabby. I just want you to know we were not without our mask. Okay, so but when I would go out and you would tell people, I'm Ronnie, I'm running for state senate, and the look in their eyes that let them know that, oh my goodness, we have another choice. We have another choice. That was that lit up the entire night for me, wherever I was at, whether I was on Zoom, whether I was out at back to school events or at the Rotan Club speaking. When you see people that look at you and say, oh my God, you are going to be the difference, that gave me hope that we really and truly are speaking to the voters, and we're speaking about the things that they care about. And so I am very hopeful. Obviously, like Gabby said, the early voting, if the early voting has been any indication of what's about to happen, I am super excited. I know Gabby is super excited. I think all Democrats across the state should be excited, because we have seen the anger, I would like to call it. I know that's not the right word, but the anger. But the fact of the matter is, people want change, and they're showing that they want that change now. And so I am very hopeful that we're gonna make this sweep across Tennessee, and very, very likely we're gonna turn Tennessee blue.
Absolutely, yeah. Perfect. I appreciate both of you being on tonight. And before we officially close out, I want to give you both an opportunity to let the voters know where they can find more information about you, how they can get involved in the campaigns, and what they need from you. So, Ronnie, I'll go ahead and let you go.
Drew, again, I really appreciate you bringing us on and just giving us opportunity, a platform to just speak to the voters. Go to RonnieForSenate.com. That's Ronnie, FOR, Senate.com. Go on. As always, we need volunteers. We always need contributions, because we know that in order to keep this momentum going, it's going to require us to be able to compete. And I hate that word to have to use it, but we're going to have to be able to compete with those big dollar spenders on the Republican side, because they're going to do everything they can to drown out Gabby and our voice. And they're going to do it through mailers. They're going to do it through ads. They're going to do it through the fact that they have the money on their side. So, we need you to go on our site, again, RonnieForSenate.com. I need you to volunteer. I need you to be ready to help his phone bank and all that. And I need you to help me by contributing, if it's 5, 10, 15, because we're going to have to continue to reach every voter until every vote is counted. And that's how we're going to make the difference in this election.
Perfect. Yeah, make sure you visit Ronnie's website and give him some donations while you're there. Gabby, go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you.
We're on all social media platforms, and it's Vote for Gabby. And then our website is voteforgabby.com. And we need volunteers. I think one way to overcome all the financial power that the other side has is through people power, right? We know people vote. So if we can reach people, that goes a long way to making a difference in our races. So volunteer if you can with any candidate that's running this. It's very important that we get our message out. So we're going to be phone banking, text banking. You can do that from anywhere. And we always start out with a training. So no experience is necessary. We'll train you. And it's a lot of fun. We also have a lot of fun. It's a really good opportunity to connect with people, like-minded people, and have that interaction, especially now that all of us kind of are in our homes and not going out too much. So definitely help us out. And if you are in a position to give, we would love to have a donation from you. On Saturday, we're doing a fundraiser with Trey Crowder. So if y'all go to our Facebook page or the website, it should be on there. It's only $25 to attend. It'll be a fun night. I'm not going to be that funny, but I'm sure he is. So get a little comedic relief for these crazy times that we're living in.
Absolutely perfect. Well, I want to thank both candidates for joining us tonight. I have dropped both of their Act Blue links into the comments here, so please drop them a donation, go visit their websites, learn more about them, and if you can volunteer your time, please do. Both of these candidates are on the verge of helping us flip the House and the Senate, and we need all hands on deck in the run-up to the election. So again, Gabby, Ronnie, thank you for joining us. Everyone, have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Drew. Take care, Gabby.
Thank you
Good
both.
luck, Ronnie.
All righty. Bye-bye.
See ya. Thank you, Gabby.